welcome back to our channel. This is going to be episode 2 of our bus build.
In today's episode, we transform our bus from a normal school bus into what we are currently sitting in, which is a completely empty bus. In this episode, we remove our wheelchair lift, we remove the track system on the floor, we remove all of the subfloor, we remove all of the seats, and we remove all of the paneling from front to back. This was a super fun process for us because you get to see the bus transform from a school bus to a complete blank canvas. And right now our bus is a complete skeleton. So it's been really fun, and now we finally get to see the actual room we have to work with, and we can get our creative juices flowing and figure out our floor plan and just really have a better idea of what we're working with. So this was a really fun episode, and we're super excited to show you guys the process. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the video.
Bye guys, see you in the next one.
Okay, so step number 1 in getting this place cleaned out is going to be removing these seats, and then I'm going to start working on the floor, removing this track system that's on the floor as well. So that's the goal for today, is getting these seats out, start clearing up some space. The process of removing the seats was fairly easy in our case. Because we have a floor track system, it's as easy as removing the mounting nuts from the mounting bolts and pulling the seats right up. Okay, so I just wanted to do a quick run through of how we removed our wheelchair lift and how we disconnected it and unmounted it. Okay, so there's 10 carriage bolts that are holding this thing to the ground. So on the base of the wheelchair lift, you've got 10 carriage bolts, 5 on each side, one here, 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 and here, and then it's mirrored on the other side. Those carriage bolts, they run through the mounting plate, through your subframe, and then they run through whatever paneling is on the undercarriage of the bus. Once they get through that, they run through these hangers that are underneath the bus, and then they're nutted from underneath these hangers. In order to get these off, you either have to remove those nuts or you have to cut them right off. In our case, the nuts were just too rusted, so I went right ahead, skipped trying to remove them with a ratchet and a wrench, and I went right ahead and I cut them off with a cutoff wheel. It was super easy. Once you get those off, just grab a hammer and then you can pop these bolts right through the mounting plate. As far as disconnecting the electrical, you've got 2 hookups right in here. You got a plug here and a plug here. This top plug right here actually just runs right to the remote here. So you don't need to unhook that, but the other one you're going to need to unhook because it's got wires running through the floor. The only 2 other places that you're going to have to disconnect, to my knowledge, are right over here. You've got a ground wire that's hooked right in here, and then you've got a power wire running right to this box. Once you have all 10 carriage bolts unhooked, as well as these 3 wires unhooked, this thing is good to go, and you can move it around and disconnect it. Removal of the front barriers was a little different, as these are mounted directly through the floor with a washer and nut on the underside of the bus. Taking an angle grinder to the bolt head was the quickest and easiest process we could think of. Once the bolt heads are cut, you can hammer the bolt right through the floor with a punch. This is a similar process to how you'll see we removed the track system later. Here you'll see another padded barrier that was mounted through the floor as well as through the sidewall. There was also a mounting plate riveted into the ceiling that had to be grinded down for complete removal. As far as these side panels, they were mostly rivets holding the panels to the walls with a few screws. Once the few screws are removed, I suggest grinding down the rivets with an angle grinder. The rivets are aluminum, so it's a very quick and easy process grinding them down. Since we will be re-insulating our walls, we also removed all the old insulation behind the panels. The back panels and AC covering had 0 rivets. Instead, it had the typical square drive screw head that you'll see all throughout the buses. I followed the same process for moving the paneling in the front of the bus above the driver's area, which we didn't get video of. Okay, so this is where we are so far. We've ripped off all of the paneling in the back, all the paneling covering the air conditioning unit, and then we started ripping out all of the bottom paneling on each of the walls, as well as this front paneling up there. So what we're going to move on to next is we're going to start ripping up the floor, but in order to do that, we need to get rid of these track systems. Personally, I still want to save the track systems because I think that they're extremely useful in other applications. So I'm not going to go ahead and rip them up and break them and just, destroy them. So in order to get them up without completely destroying them, you've got a couple options. First, it's important to know on the top side of the track, you've got an Allen head bolt that runs through the entire floor with a washer and nut on the underside of the bus. Option 1 involves having someone in the bus with an Allen key holding the bolt head and then someone underneath with a socket unscrewing the nut. This sounds good in theory, but realistically, a majority of the Allen keys on our bus are corroded. So we opted for option number 2, which is to use a cutoff wheel and cut the nuts off from the underside and punch the bolts through the top side. Either option you take, this process is extremely time consuming and difficult. There were easily over 100 nuts that had to be cut, and many of them were in extremely tight spots. It's important to point out that if you don't care to keep the track system, it's probably easier to cut them off from the top side, as you won't be twisted every which way with tons of dirt and debris falling all over you, which is how it was for me underneath the bus for a couple hours. Okay, so I just got done with this whole side. I spent about 2 hours underneath the bus cutting off all of the nuts. As you can tell, it's not the cleanest job. I am completely covered in crap. Once those nuts are cut, I just take my mounting piece here for the track. You just put that right in. Just take the crowbar, and you're gonna peel up the track just like that. And then you're just gonna continue this all the way down the track until you slowly pry it up. And then what you end up with is a track that is completely removed. So that's the process that we're using to get these tracks up.
No more cutting short on Lucid Street. Keep your goal, got many lives.